We'll have this very toxic thought sometimes when I'm really sad, and I'm like, why am I sad? I look skinny now. I look skinny.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Literally Gasian.
Literally Gasian.
You're listening to Literally Gasians, the podcast where two gay Asian guys get real about their feelings and literally Gasian bleep, because we can't cuss in the first 5 minutes on YouTube.
Today, we're welcoming our first ever woman onto the podcast. Welcome, YoungMi Mayer.
Yay, welcome, YoungMi.
Yay. Hi. Thanks for having me.
This is such a milestone for us because your former podcast, Feeling Asian, was sort of the template, if not inspiration, for this show. I think, so I took like 2 years off before I started working again. And I think I spent like 3 months hiking and just listening to your voice and Brian's voice in my head for months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we both
really?
like during lockdown got super into it, and we're just listening to you, just you and him going back and forth and putting up with all these feelings that you had with not about each other but with life, and it was inspiring. But we'll get to that soon. I know we just did a little brief intro, but we have a long version now, and we didn't know where to start, so we asked the glorious overlord ChatGPT for the highlights. So we're gonna read a few about you, and you can feel free to respond to them.
Have you seen this before?
I've never used ChatGPT in any capacity ever. So I'm but I have a really funny story about ChatGPT that I'll tell you after I'm really interested to see what ChatGPT says about me.
It's like the new version of Googling yourself, but scarier.
Okay, so here's the first highlight, the first bullet that comes up when we're like, tell me about YoungMi Mayer. First bold bullet, it is comedian and podcaster, co-host of the popular podcast Feeling Asian, where she discusses mental health, identity, and the Asian American experience using comedy to explore difficult personal topics, including mental health struggles, there's mental health again, and societal pressures.
Wow. Okay. Pretty accurate.
This is the future. Well, you also have another podcast. You have a podcast now called Harry Butthole, right?
Yeah, but it's interesting what ChatGPT finds important.
And they're always a little behind. They're like 6 months to a year behind. It bullet points, parent and single mom often shares experiences of being a single mother and the challenges of balancing parenting with a comedy career.
Okay. Accurate.
And then the second to last one, vulnerability in comedy. Uses comedy to explore difficult personal topics, including mental health struggles and societal pressures. I guess your brand is mental health struggles and societal pressure.
Mentally ill is my brand. I like that. You know how I feel like I always notice this, but when celebrities are women, they will always put like the first thing will always be like mom, and then it'll be like actor, musician, like that. But men are just
dad.
like actor, musician first, and then like at the end they'll be like I think have 3 or 4 kids, I think, or something like that.
They're terrible dads.
Yeah, no one's like ChatGPTing Matt Damon. It says parent and dad. It just says part of like Ben Affleck's friend or something.
I was like, I like that ChatGPT gave me the male treatment. They were like, first comedian, podcaster, and then also she has a kid.
They have someone woke working in their team. So next came up was Instagram presence. Frequently posts humorous, candid, and sometimes serious reflections on her life and experiences.
Okay. Yeah.
I like how like bland it can make the most exciting topics become.
I agree. It's like it is accurate information put in the most bland way. I was going to say humanly possible, but it's not a human.
It's not a human.
No.
So in addition to ChatGPT, we have 2 more to add. This is from us, so this is not going to be boring. Well, maybe it'll be boring. So the first is you're kind of a Gaysian icon. I don't know if do you know this, or do you know that you have a lot of gay Asian fans?
Well, I was assuming I have gay fans because I don't know. I'm a messy bitch who loves attention. So I assumed so much, but I didn't know I was a Gaysian icon.
Well, at least you're our Gaysian icons.
You're our Asian icon. Like a bunch of friends who are also listeners, like, who's your next guest? We're like, YoungMi Mayer. And they're like, oh my God. I cannot wait for that. And we're like, she has a new book coming out. But okay, that's the next one. That's the next one.
And excitedly, and author of a new book out this week. And what's the title, YoungMi?
The title is I'm Laughing Because I'm Crying. It's a memoir. I grabbed the book because I thought that I made a mistake on the title, but that's what it's called. I'm laughing because I'm crying. I was like, oh my God, is it? I'm crying because I'm laughing. Yeah, and it's out November 12th everywhere. There's also an audiobook version that I think is probably going to be fun just because, you know, like my background as a stand-up comedian and podcaster, it's like kind of, I feel like my forte. So
You're the one who's reading it?
Yes.
Oh, that's so exciting. That might be easier for me.
Yeah, do you happen to have watched the terrible Toxic Show and Just Like That?
No.
There's a whole storyline where Carrie is reading the book and she can't get through it because she keeps crying. Then maybe you're crying because you're laughing or laughing because you're crying. I don't know.
Oh, and Just Like That is the Sex and the City, the new one. The new
one.
Oh, Carrie reads an audiobook. I might have to watch that and see if it's relatable.
She just cries and then they're like, well, you know, maybe we'll just get someone else to read it for you.
That's so funny. When I was recording the book, the director, I was like, oh, what do I do if I start crying? I asked the director. And she was like, oh, like, you don't have to, like, do a performance. Like, she thought that I was gonna fake cry, like while reading it, like an actor, you know. And I was like, oh no, I just meant like if I am reading it and like something sad comes up and I start crying, I'm not gonna be like, and then my mother, like, you know, like. And she was like, oh, and then I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh my God, no, don't worry, I'm not a fucking weirdo.
I mean, you could have just faked her out. You could have been like, and that's why I have a hairy butthole or something like that.
That'd be the gag, that all of this, you just have made up this entire life of this trauma and comedy. You're just making it up. You're not even, none of that was real. Exactly. None of it was real.
Yeah, what if it was a bit? What then?
Well, we can find out. We'll interrogate you right now.
Yeah, about the book. Well, speaking of hairy butthole, I think it's like 12 pages into the book when I saw it, the term hairy butthole, and the term that seems to define your brand right now.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about hairy butthole. Like, what does it mean? Why'd you name your podcast that? Why'd you bring it up in the book? Like, what does it mean?
So it's based on this Korean saying, which is, if you laugh while crying, hair grows out of your butthole. And it's also based on like probably one of my oldest stand-up jokes, like probably one of the first jokes I ever wrote. Because when I was a kid, my mom would, you know, like beat me, and then I would start crying, and then she would tell me jokes, and then I would start laughing. And then while I was crying and laughing, she would say, do you know what happens when you laugh and cry at the same time? Hair grows out of your butthole. And I was just always like, is my mom crazy? Like, why did she? I was just like, why did she say that? Like, how did she even come up with that? Like, that's so weird. But then I started saying that joke on stage as a stand-up comedian. I was like, isn't my mom weird? She says like the weirdest things. And all these Korean people were like, oh no, that's just like a really popular Korean saying. Like, all of our parents said that to us too. And I was like,
really? So whenever other Korean kids got beat by their parents, the parents would make a joke and be hairy butthole.
Yeah, it's a common Korean saying. And so then I was like, okay, then so the Koreans are weird. They're all weird.
So there's a culture of Koreans who are all scared to have hairy buttholes. Maybe that is passed on to that's some intergenerational trauma going on right there.
Yeah, they're terrified of hairy buttholes.
Because I have ADHD, have not read the book yet. But Bao, he told me about it and gave me the cliff notes and wrote questions for me. all of they have attention span for is reading your tweets. So, but you spend like the first third of your book talking about your life in Korea, and we all know that from like your tweets and your social media presence. So. For people who don't know, like, you were born in Korea, right? Mm-hmm. And like it seems to really inform a lot of your, like, I don't know, not even just your comedy, just like how you navigate life. But it seems to come
Yeah.
to a lot of roadblocks.
This is definitely like, what's the word? Like a advantage that I have, I think, in terms of having a more unique voice in the like Asian American space. Even, like in terms of comedy or just like my point of view and now writing my book is that I am from Asia. And I think it gave me an advantage in being able to create jokes and like thinking of things in a slightly different way. And I think one of the ways that I really tap into it is I think a lot of Asian Americans that grew up in Asia don't realize this, but like Asian people in Asia like legit make fun of white people or kind of look down on them, like it's not like, I feel like obviously that exists in Asian American communities in America, but there's always this like even really like subliminal like undercurrent of like white people are like we do think they're better than us or something like very subtle, but it's always kind of there. But in Korea they're like, what is these fucking donkey lip like they're just like, look at these lazy fucking stinky, like they just get really really like mean about them. And so there's like this level of kind of like, oh god, it's those Americans, like it's those whites again, like that I kind of tap into that I haven't seen to that extent, I think. But also the funny part is because I'm biracial, I get so much more allowance to say stuff like that. It's like no one can really get that mad at me. But then I think what you're saying about the roadblocks with it, about growing up in Asia, what are you referring to?
Well, kind of like how you said that both being biracial, like you get shit there for being one thing, you get shit here for being another thing.
Oh yeah.
And in a way, there's no winning. There's no winning in a sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like. Yeah, I mean, but I feel like all Asian Americans feel like that, right? Like in America, you're not really American and you're not really Asian. Like it's like that kind of feeling. So.
Yeah, and one thing I love when you mention like people in Asia just make fun of white people. My family's from Vietnam, and I've been back like every other year since I was like 4, so I've been there a lot. But my family, one thing they like read white people on was that they said that there's like a popular lake that's like a tourist destination in Hanoi, and they said like for a while there were like what they say like mi chang nghèo, which translates to poor white people who used to go to the lake and play guitar for money. And then all my family's like, what the hell? Why are you coming to our country asking? Vietnam was a developing country for money for your damn John Mayer cover.
It's a bad look. It's you have not thought this through, and those. Wait, what's the word in Vietnamese?
Mi chang nghèo.
Mi chang nghèo. Those mi chang nghèos had dreads. Okay, let's be honest.
Totally.
Dreads and no deodorant. Oh my god.
Haven't showered for 3 weeks because they don't use soap.
And it's so funny because the Vietnamese people probably were like, oh my god, they're so poor that they're stinky. But it's like, meanwhile, they don't know it's like some weird like vegan guy.
Yeah, with probably a trust fund,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
So, but you do spend a lot of the book talking about your childhood in Korea, like up to you were 18 when you left. I can't even recall like what I did when I was 16. How were you able to like get all those memories down like so vividly like on paper?
Okay, so first of all, I think I do I have very good memories of being a child, but then also this is what I think, because a lot of people have asked me that. I think if anybody were to write a book about their lives, they would be able to remember at least 10 very solid, vivid memories from childhood, right? Like you were saying, I can't remember being 16. But if you're like sitting down and writing and just remembering your entire life, you can probably think of, right, like as many stories from that time period. And then there's also some incidents in the book that I were like looking back, I'm like, okay, that was just trauma, and the fact that I like remember every single detail of that incident is because I have PTSD. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I remember what the air smelled like and what people's hair looked like and what I was wearing. Like every little like incident, which I think people say, you know, is like when you're experiencing a traumatic event.
Yeah, you do remember everything, every second by second. And like, did like therapy help throughout your life? Like therapy and like unpacking everything that informed you to who you are now. Did that kind of help over the years solidify just like it's not just the vivid memory, but the connection to everything that you are now?
Therapy helps so much. And I think like I actually, when I added the dedication, the acknowledgements in the back, like the first person I thank is my therapist, because I kept seeing the stuff in the book that was stuff that I, discovered through therapy, you know, like the part about how obviously there's like this part in the book where I talk about my parents and their lives and like how they came to meet and stuff like that. But like, I have this part where, you know, I refer to them as like the children and I'm like the parent, and that's just I think people know common like pop psychology terms, and that's like parentification, right? Like that's like when children become emotionally more mature than their parents, and you end up taking care of your parents' emotions in the way that is flipped. Like they should have been doing that for you, but then you do that for them. And so I write this whole chapter about how that happened, but that was all from therapy, you know? It made me realize that. So
yeah, parentification is such a better word than what my therapist called it. My therapist called it, like, I think you and your mom have emotional incest.
Oof, that doesn't. I like parentification better.
No, emotional incest is something I also I hate that term too.
Hate it.
It's similar, but okay, this is my understanding of emotional incest. It's when you take the role that should have been reserved for a partner, right?
Okay.
And I believe I might be wrong, which I had a lot too, because basically which I know it's like a really yucky phrase, but it happens so much to people, and it does feel violating and yucky when it happens, I think, and people don't understand why. So I think it's really interesting to discuss that. But it's like basically like if you're doing something like you're going out to a restaurant with your mom and she starts freaking out and you have to be like, which is similar to parentification, like you become her parent. But then you also will start acting like her partner, right? Like that's the job of her husband or her boyfriend or her, you know, romantic partner to be like, you're going to be okay, sweetie, and like hug her and pat her on the back. But then you're doing it. And that is, I believe, what I understand is.
Yeah. I see the difference.
Emotional.
I hate the term. And it's my parents are divorced, but they've divorced when I was 18. But ever since I was 9, my mom started confiding in me about how much she hated my dad.
I think that's incest. Yeah, emotional.
That should be reserved for their friends, not the family.
Yeah,
not the
their
kids.
friends are with my dad, right? And she'd always say this thing that was so fucked up, like every year. I mean, I love her, but like this was fucked up. She's like, if I didn't have you and your sister, I wouldn't be here. You know, like just like I'm here because of you. So it's like we always felt like responsible for all her pain. And so my therapist these days tries to find out when that's showing up for me. Like my mom says she's really lonely. Maybe I should find her a doctor, then get her on Lexapro, blah, blah. He's like, don't do it. He has to stop me from doing it. It's like your sister wants to do it's fine, but you have this thing. I'm like, and I'm still kind of like battling it a little bit. I'm like,
Oldest
have to call it that.
Oldest son vibes.
Oldest son thing.
Well, I think that as an adult now, I mean, if you hadn't been put in that role as a kid, I think it would be okay now for you to like caretake your mom in an emotional way. But I think what your therapist is saying is because maybe you entered that role too young and you have to like sort of set that boundary, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. And I think there's still stuff I'm working through. My mom's going to be here for 3 full months. She lives in Vietnam.
Wow.
And she's going to come here for 3 full months. And I'm just like bracing myself for that. Like,
wow.
Yeah. a little bit.
Can I just tell you a really funny the Chat GPT story really quick?
Yes.
Okay, just so I am working at a restaurant. I'm working as a server at this pop up for like Mission Chinese, and they hired this bartender to come up with a cocktail menu. And I don't know who they are. And this is alleged. This is all alleged. Okay, no one get mad at me. But then the drinks were kind of off. Like they didn't taste good. They all tasted the same, and all of them were like they were like classic cocktails, but with like a little Asian twist. But they were all Japanese for some reason. I don't know why. And so it was like, instead of like a mojito, it was like shiso mojito, like for example, right? It's not actually, but like something like that. So it was like 5 very classic drinks. None of them really tasted that great. And they're just like, something was off about them. The recipe was written like not like clearly enough. So we had another bartender, mixologist, my friend John DeBerry, who's like a well-known mixologist, come in and I was like, can you like, what do you think about these drinks? And he was like, okay, all of them are off. They're really hard to make in a really weird way. I don't understand. And he was looking at the menu and he was like, you know, this looks like somebody like inputted Chinese cocktail or Asian cocktail list into Chat GPT. He said that, right? And just like, and so he did it, and literally the same fucking drinks popped up.
Does that first bartender still work there?
Well, they were just like doing what's it called, like consulting, where you get paid one time to come up with the menu and then you leave. So they're not there. Yeah, and so we were like, is this happening? Is this real? And John was like, I promise you, like this. Look, we were looking at the menu, like, oh my god, that's literally our cocktail menu. That's embarrassing. Oh, we caught you.
Oh my gosh. Well,
so funny.
Wait, are you guys? Is there a Mission Chinese pop up going on right now?
Yes, it's happening in New York City on 45 Mott. That's the address in Chinatown. If you're in New York City listening to this.
Oh, Mott Street. Yeah, my friend used to live on Mott Street, so that's okay.
That's
well,
so nice.
I mean, we can jump into this part because we had this whole thing about Mission Chinese food. Because I used to live in San Francisco. I live in LA now. I was there for 10 years. You're there now, right? Don't you?
Mm-hmm. I still live in San Francisco, and I have this weird connection in that one time at a long time ago, a friend, her boyfriend was a guest chef at Mission Chinese, and he asked me to dress up as a giant sriracha bottle. I was like a mascot. I was doing crowd work.
Oh, wow.
I would walk up to like people eating and just sit down at their table, kind of like just checking how they're doing.
Wow.
It was a different time. Maybe it's what led me to start doing drag later in years. Giant sriracha bottle with the green top and everything.
That's so
It was
funny.
interesting. Maybe we crossed paths back then.
I don't remember ever running into a siracha bottle. I'm sorry. I would remember that, I think.
It's for the best. It's for the best. It was very embarrassing, but whatever.
Who was this that asked you to do this? I have zero memory of this.
It's so long ago. I don't remember his name, but he was dating a good high school friend of mine, and it's just like, okay, and I got a free meal out of it, and it was fun.
maybe it was during the pop up, right? The pop up was when you and your ex were kind of tangentially involved, so maybe it was another guest chef before you guys.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Mission Chinese thing.
I remember. Yeah. Oh, Mission Street Food, I think.
Which kind of brings us to, you lived in SF for quite a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were
7 years.
7 years. But you, like in the book, you talk about how you first started living in the U.S. in San Francisco, in like the Tenderloin and Treasure Island.
Treasure Island, girl.
Mm-hmm. Deep cuts.
I mean, I'm from here. I know that's a hard place to grow up.
Well, I tell people I lived there when I first moved to San Francisco, and they were like, I didn't even know you could live there.
Yeah, it's like where music festivals are.
Yeah, there's like these old army barracks where soldiers used to live that are, I guess, are still somehow, I don't know. They're no longer for the military, but they rent it out to like civilians as rent controlled apartments, basically. So you can rent a whole house, and it's really cheap. And so when I moved to San Francisco, I had like $700, and the only apartment I could find with no deposit was this room in Treasure Island, and so I rented this room for $550 a month.
That's great.
I used to hook up with somebody on Treasure Island.
You drove? Wow. At least you didn't take the 103 bus or whatever. That would have been so sad. Imagine you waiting for the 103 at the transit station, like
Just
downtown.
Right.
Deet, deet, deet.
I just shaved my hairy butthole for this, and I'm getting on the bus.
Yeah, sitting on the bench waiting for the bus with your freshly shaved butthole. That would have been sad. That would have been your rock bottom.
Especially if one bus didn't come, and texting I'm gonna be 14 minutes later because that's when the next bus
No.
is coming.
No, the bus ran every 45 minutes. You were like, well, I'm going to be there in an hour and 12 minutes, I guess.
You got to SF. You were taking that 103 bus all the time into the city for work.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I worked at a coffee shop.
I mean, there's no other way off the island. It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't have a car. I didn't have a car.
Do you miss San Francisco much?
Okay, I'm going to say something, and I don't know. People are I think that you're either on one side or the other. I hate the weather there. I hate the weather.
Oh, interesting.
I hate it.
Everyone has thoughts about San Francisco. I wanted to know yours. Yeah. The weather. Okay,
Yeah.
what else?
So I hate the weather. So some people love the weather. That's their favorite thing about it. But if in case people don't know if they're listening to this, it's fucking freezing every morning. It's -20. And you have to wear a winter coat, and then by noon it's 80 degrees every single day, and it's so annoying because when you go to Dolores Park and you drink beers with your friends all day, and it's you're wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and then 5 o'clock hits and you see the fog rolling in from the water
that
it's
was
some
me last weekend.
evil biblical plague coming in, and then you're just immediately freezing. And you're you don't have any clothes, and you're wasted, and you took a mushroom gummy or whatever the hell, mushroom chocolate. You're so fucked up, and you have to get on your bike and bicycle home. That's what everyone in San Francisco does. It's torture. It's painful. The weather is painful. But then I think also the time I was there was the years were 2005 to 2012, and I think 2012 was basically when all the tech people were just taking over, and all my friends were. Everyone, I think, was just leaving at that point.
You saw it coming. We saw it coming too. The city has changed a lot since you've left, but for the same reasons. And a lot of people left, like you and another friend, which is another weird connection. Back, you're saying you left in 2012, and that's when I used to go to the same colorist and hairstylist, Chansopa.
Wow.
I loved her. We were friends. We'd hang out. We'd drink. I would bring her weird fruits when I got a haircut. I even brought her garlic. And she would make fun of me, and she'd do my hair. And then she sadly left San Francisco to go to New York. And I guess that's where you have your connection with her.
No, I actually knew her in San Francisco. We were friends. And I was getting my hair done at the salon there, and then she moved here a few years after I did, and she opened her spa, and so now she's doing my hair, which she just did, I think 2 days ago.
Yeah, it looks great.
Fresh. Get it ready for the book tour.
Yeah.
Shout out to Chansopa and her 1-800 Bleach Me. She's so cool. We used to call her she's just a Gaysian, man. She's a Gaysian. She's basically.
She is a Gaysian. Yeah. She's a Gaysian. Her salon's now open in the East Village in Manhattan, and I always tell people to go there. It's amazing.
Yeah. What I appreciate about I know this is not about you, but what I appreciate in the general sense of the Asian things are that she started it so that because she worked at a salon where they would charge people of color higher to color their hair because they would say it's harder. And she's no, why is there, it's surge pricing, but just for people of color. So she just evenly charges everyone the same price because everyone deserves to not be overcharged for not being white.
Wow, I didn't know that. And it's it's a really good point that people shouldn't be charged more for that. But then the things that I've been hearing about hair places that are like higher end places like that in America is that on top of that, they don't know how to do hair that's not white people's hair. And so they are fucking it up and charging you more. So everyone go to Chansopa. That won't happen to you.
One of my favorite parts about your section of the book in San Francisco was that you tried to be like a drug addict, but you kept failing.
I tried.
Tell us a little bit more about like what you were going through at the time and what I meant by that.
Well, I think this is like one of these stories that I think, it was great for the book because the book is about being like things that are sad and funny at the same time. I mean, it's really sad if I think back on, I was 20 years old. I was like living in San Francisco by myself. I didn't know anybody. And like now looking back, I was like, oh my God, I was processing my childhood so much, like, because I think when you're in your 20s, the 20s is like the time that you process all this fucked up stuff that happened to you as a kid, but you don't even know it then. You're just chugging along thinking you're an adult and you're totally fine. But I think I was like in the throes of all this emotional sort of like confronting all these emotions and these like dysfunctional emotions that I had. And looking back at my 20s, that was like that whole journey of that decade, processing my childhood. But this was right in the beginning of that. And I think my interpretation of, or how I was processing it was like, I feel bad. I feel very bad and I don't know why. Right. And so, and there was something that drew me into like drug addicts or doing drugs. And a lot of my friends, I think in the book, I say I was introduced to doing heroin by my friend who was a junkie. And it just seemed like for some reason in my head, I was like, it just felt like this is what I'm supposed to be. Like this matches how bad I feel on the inside. This is what my life is supposed to look like. I'm supposed to be a drug addict, which is, it was almost like, I'm going to do that. Like, it was almost like, how people are like, I'm going to get clean girl aesthetic. I'm going to get a tight, nicely combed bun and get some gold hoop earrings and a white sweater. Like, it's like I planned it because I was like, this is my thing, my lifestyle. But then I couldn't do heroin because I would snort it and then I would throw up like uncontrollably, like projectile vomit every single time. And so
so then you would just do it like in someone's house or in a bathroom stall or something like that, and then just like immediately need to throw up and know it and just do it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so I would snort it and just be like, it would be like, bleh, like that. And I was so dumb that I thought that was normal because, whenever you see like junkies or something in a movie, like in a made for Hallmark movie, they're throwing up because like they're going through a withdrawal. But I didn't understand. I was like, oh, I guess everyone just projectile vomits when they do heroin. Of course not. And so like it was to the point where I don't remember, like I do obviously remember feeling high, but it was mostly just nausea all the time. And after my friend moved away because she was a junkie, her parents like sent for her to come back home because she was addicted to heroin. I literally, I remember like saying goodbye to her when she went to the airport and never did heroin again, never felt like doing it again. Like I just like never got addicted. Yeah.
That must be nice. I feel I resonate with like working out your issues with drugs in your 20s. So that was my entire like story arc in San Francisco, but it was different. It also felt like I think I deserve or want to be this. And maybe it was addiction at the time. And I think I've had to work through a lot of therapy to get everything to a better place. But when I was in San Francisco, those early years when I first discovered Molly, I would just really be like, I wouldn't sleep from like Thursday to December Thursday to Sunday.
I love that.
Thursday to December.
From Thursday to
I know,
December.
'cause we were there together.
I was up.
Yeah, we were there together. And for me, it was like, I think it was a time when like some of that Molly had a little bit of meth in it. Let's be honest. Because when I take Molly, after an hour, I want to go to bed. So I don't know how I was. Yeah. I think I had always thought growing up that I would be like this artist or like this entertainer. And then I failed at it, or like I was like traumatized by it. It sounds like I'm just going to go full on like school and be like this corporate girly. And then it happened, right? I was like a corporate girly. And for some reason, like the weekend then was and And the weekend was like this opportunity to like get completely out of that and be like in this like underground, seedy, like the end up, then the after hours, then the after hours, then it's noon and we go to lunch. And then we go to like the Castro after. Like I felt like I was doing something bad, and that felt like more free to me, or like that life of this artist or entertainer that I thought I would have, versus what the reality was like. I was gonna go and have to make an agenda for a meeting on Monday, or But like I feel like I was like hours and hours on Molly on the dance floor for hours. Like I was working something out, like moving my body in that way. And so there's like this dark part about it, but like also just I feel like I was like thankful for those years. Like I think I worked out a lot of things on that dance floor, you know.
So for you, it was more like a rebellion against like the life that you didn't maybe think that you were going to have.
Yeah.
Would you say it's fair to say that? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, so what do you mean by you were traumatized by the being an artist and entertainer thing?
I was a singer all my life, and then I mean a lot of people don't know this. When I was 18, I auditioned for American Idol.
Okay.
So that was like season 3, and I made it to like Hollywood, and then I got cut at Hollywood, right? But I just remember just how mean Simon was when I got cut.
Oh God, yeah.
And at 18, I didn't know how to deal with being on TV and then like being embarrassed that way, like at that time when I got cut. And it wasn't even that bad, but I think a sensitive little 18-year-old me like just never wanted to sing again after that. I was just like, I'm gay and queer.
Yeah.
There wasn't any Sam Smith or like Troye Sivan out at the time, so I was like, I'd have to pretend to be straight, and I actually want to come out. So the only way I can ever live a life where I'm out is if I just don't try to become an entertainer. And it's just like stories I told myself, and so I just like I didn't sing for like 10 years.
Wait, so was that aired on TV? That part of you getting cut?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I was
I'm
there
so sorry.
watching it. Like I didn't know about at the time, and then that was like a weird like early connection. But the thing was that you may not have known it. We were all there going, "Oh my God, he's like our new role model." Even if you were cut, we're like, we see this person on TV, and I was like, "Okay, he's doing really well." I loved it.
Yeah. So in lieu of singing, I had Molly, and that was really nice.
Oh, it does sound well. That is a huge trauma. That's an actual trauma, right? Like I think people, especially with nowadays, where younger people have way easy access to becoming viral and like famous overnight, and having basically an experience like that you had when you're that young, going through something like that's that visible is trauma. Like the fact that that whatever, even when someone has a super viral TikTok and they're like 16 years old, like just looking at the number, it's like 50 million people know who you are. And some of them are, like negative. Like sometimes you get famous for like whatever, like singing or dancing really well, but sometimes you do something and it's embarrassing. Can you imagine as a 16-year-old, like having to, I mean, obviously it's exactly what you went through, Bao, but like, it's like, that is trauma. That is like legit trauma. And of course, obviously that's why it took 10 years for you to process it.
Yeah. And I mean, it also like when that clip aired, then I got some opportunities coming in, and I would meet with these people, and they'd be like, great, you just need to lose like 30 pounds. Because I was set back then.
Trauma on trauma.
Trauma. Then I was like, I wanted to come out, but I couldn't. Like I didn't feel like in this world I could. And so I was just like, I'm just not going to like, I told my parents I quit, and they're like, are you sure? We spent so much money, or we invested so much time. You have this talent. And anyway, the past is the past. I just sing at friends' weddings now, and I'm okay with that. I've worked through it a lot in therapy and apparently on the dance floor. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's okay. I think I've worked through it, but I recognized when you said, yeah, in your 20s, you don't know what's wrong.
Yeah. You're so
and
far
so
away
like
from
the drugs just make you feel better.
Yeah.
And now I think I have more an intentional like approach to drugs, where I'm like, am I sure I'm not sad about something? Yeah.
It's actually the worst time I found, like when you're sad to take drugs. It just kind of it's been putting us into like not so great places sometimes.
I know, but not to be toxic, but nothing hits better than that high when you're sad. When you're happy, you're just like, oh, this is sort of a plus up, which is healthy.
Yeah.
But like when you have trauma, that Molly just hits.
Yeah.
Just a little bit better.
There you
I
go.
sound like such an addict right now, so we're gonna move on.
Yes, let's do that.
So in the book, toward the end, you talk about a same-sex relationship you had. Do you consider yourself to be queer or like a queer woman?
Yes. I've had relationships with people of different gender. How am I saying this? Different genders.
Got it.
So I've had like relationships. I didn't really write about those. I did write like an entire chapter about like all the people that I dated and slept with in the last, like, after I got divorced. But then it became, I don't know, it was just like a list of all these experiences I had. And then I was like, oh, this might be like an interesting like other book, but it doesn't really fit into this book, you know, because it was just like listing of like these experiences in detail. But I do think it's interesting because after my divorce, when I was 33, is when I fully explored my queer identity and started not only sleeping with people, you know, like that are non-men, but like being in relationships with you know, like women, and the one in the book I wrote because it was so short, and I think the one that was least easy to figure out who it is, you know, because like I was kind of worried about
you
like
you don't want to air out everyone else's like laundry.
I mean, I asked that question because we ask every guest who comes onto the podcast, when was the first time you felt Gaysian?
And you can take
or
that however
queer
you like.
Asian? But when was that? What was the thing, the inflection point, or something in culture you saw that made you first have that inkling? I might be a little queer and Asian.
Well, I think when I was young, like a kid, I like had this thing where I would have like a crush on like my friend, right? But I think I was so far removed from being able to admit that to myself that I would just be like, oh, I love my friends like so much. I love my friends so much. Like, and then I would just like be like, yeah, I just like really care about my friend. And I think I have this very deep seated, this is something I talk about sometimes. I feel like I've talked about it on Feeling Asian too. I have this deep seated fear of like any kind of feelings that are like that makes me like really scared and very anxious. And I still have it. I'm going to be honest with you. It still makes me very scared to talk about it. And I would describe it as like a fear.
Like a feelings, like sexual attraction to non-men?
Yeah.
The feeling you're talking about? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And especially talking about it in the open. Like I feel like, but then, and I try to like be nice to myself because I feel like this is probably where I just like need a lot of self-care to like work through something like this. But it's something that makes me, it's one of the few things that makes me like pause before I share about it.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm such an open person. I literally don't care about talking about anything. And it's like this thing that over and over again, I still feel like, like that.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for asking the question then.
Oh, no. I'm not saying like intellectually I feel like that. Like obviously I'm like not, you know, I'm like, woo, I'm queer like that. But
you still have that feeling no matter what. And it's okay to have that. And it's not like we're in control of it. And
my perspective is that pushing past that feeling and talking about it is like good. You know what I mean? Because I want it's always about like your emotions matching your intellectual who you are. You know what I mean? And sometimes they're mismatched. And you have to like work on bringing that together, you know? Like, you know, when you break up with someone really shitty and you know they're the worst person in the world, but you still feel in love with them, even though intellectually they're, you know they're garbage, and you gotta like move those emotions up to like your like intellect, you know, and it's not easy because emotions are not logical.
I mean, I still feel a little bit of that. Well, maybe not now, but like I would say like my first 3 boyfriends, if we walked down the street, even in LA, in like Beverly Hills, and it wasn't WeHo or it wasn't the Castro, they would hold my hand. I could feel this sinking thing in my stomach of like fear and I was just like,
Yeah.
someone's gonna beat us up, right? And it's just like the danger. And then it took me a while because I realized like this is not how I'm supposed to feel. Intellectually, I think of myself as this really openly queer person. Like I'm walking in straight spaces and my boyfriend's holding, and then you realize what's there. Like I can't help it, but it's showing up. And then I worked through it a little bit, but then you started dating other people and you see them kind of going through it, and you realize like, oh yeah, I was there. And that takes some time to actually undo. And I'm not there anymore, but like to be able to get here, they have to feel that and kind of interrogate it, you know?
So you don't have that feeling whatsoever anymore. Like when you're walking around with your partners, you don't feel weird or like embarrassed or anything anymore.
No, not in the U.S. It's dependent, right?
Okay.
If I'm walking around,
it's very regional.
if I'm walking around like Seoul or
Neighbor by
go to
neighbor,
Asia.
neighborhood by neighborhood.
or like Asia, particularly Asia, or maybe
Oh yeah.
you know, it's if I'm in Bangkok, fine. Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Seoul, and that during the daytime, you know, that's I would pause a little bit, right?
What I'm hearing is that we just all need to like date and fuck more women and men to get over these issues that we're running into and like mentally. But no, I feel it. Like even in San Francisco, I get afraid to like just hold my friend's hands because I'm very touchy feely. And there's some areas, some places where it's not like say the sense of like guilt, but a sense of like that visceral sense of like, oh yeah, self-protection. Less of a scared of being gay, but I'm scared of being gay in this area, in this situation.
Yeah, it's like a fear. Which is also another interesting thing is like, I think this is like something I worked through in therapy. It's like treating myself, like thinking like how I see myself and what I allow for myself is so different than other people. Like for example, if I saw a gay couple or, you know, like a lesbian couple, whatever, on the street, zero emotions, zero, oh my God, I like something that doesn't even like occur to me that's noticeable. You know what I mean?
That's how I feel about gays too.
Yeah. We're okay with people being gay. Just putting that out there. But then for me, I'm like, no, I can't do that because that's inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like it's like how I treat myself, the standard that I think of myself is so different than other people. Like, and in therapy, I talk about that a lot with like my past of like having body dysmorphia and stuff like that. Like if I gain 5 pounds, like I'm worthless. And then my therapist was like, what would you think if your friend gained 5 pounds? I was like, I don't even think I would notice. And I love this person. Like who cares? You can gain 300 pounds. I don't care. Like what, you know, like I love you. And she was like, yeah, that's like how you should feel about yourself. I was like, no,
like, oh.
boo, not me. Everyone deserves love except me.
You know what triggers my body dysmorphia the most? It's the memories, the Facebook memories. Instagram memories. So it's like I'm not comparing myself to other people. I'm comparing myself to a younger version of myself.
When I was young and beautiful, cute Lana Del Rey.
So Donja mentioned that we should just probably fucking date as many people as we can to get over our trauma, in addition to doing drugs in our 20s.
Yes.
So there's this part in your book
I agree.
where you talk about like committing yourself to being single for like 1 year after you're not divorced, but maybe dating. After your divorce. I had the same experience. I was with my ex for 5 years. Then we broke up and I moved to LA, and I was like, 1 year I'm going to be just single.
Beautiful.
Then like you, COVID turned it into 2 years. And after coming out
it was the same time?
Same time. But then after COVID, I was like, wait, I have all these things I should go to therapy for. Then I started working on myself. So that turned into like 5 years. I mean, I'm dating someone now. But was it really hard to try to like stop yourself from getting into like a serious relationship with people? Because the way you've described it in the book, I really related to, where like you got ghosted, then you ghosted people. There was just so much feeling that went into it. How did you prevent yourself from like falling?
So at that point of my life, I had been a serial monogamous, and I said, you know, I'd never been single for longer than 3 months since I was 16, which is nuts, you know. And I was 33 at that point, so probably longer than half my life, just going from one relationship to the next. And I think that I have this I'm a very loyal person. And there's a lot of positive things and negative things when I look at myself and why I was like a serial monogamist, right? One of the positive things is I'm very loyal. Like if somebody trusts in me and has, dedicates emotions to me, like I would never betray them and I respect
Same.
them and blah, blah, blah. But there's negative parts to like falling constantly in monogamy, which for myself, not everyone, obviously, but for myself, what I saw was like this fear attachment, like as soon as I meet someone and I know they're super into me and they're like trustworthy and semi-safe feeling, I'm like, we got to get in a relationship right now. Like, because I'm scared. And up to that point, like how I was dating was just kind of like sussing out somebody and seeing how much they were into me and then being like, that's a safe person. Right. And
Same.
I had never, which is really shitty, by the way. It's a really, I'm just talking about me. It's a really shitty self-defense mechanism because basically you're tricking someone into fully falling in love with you when you have like half a foot out the door always. Cause you're like, well, you love me more. So I'm always going to be a little safe. Right. And I had to really come to terms with the fact that that is like a weird manipulative thing to do to somebody. Right.
But you didn't know it in the early days.
Yeah, of course it was never on purpose. But when I realized what I was doing, in therapy, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So what I had to do was throw myself out there fully and be like fully vulnerable and be like, I love you so much. And this is terrifying. And if you fucking leave me, I'm going to fucking jump off the bridge. Like find somebody like that. Right. And, but I think at first I had to like stop that, like that anxious, like I want to get married to you tomorrow, like attaching thing that I kept doing.
I used to do that too.
Yeah. So I was like, for a year, no matter what, I will not make anything into a monogamous relationship. Like I'll fuck people. And I did, trust me. But like, I'm not gonna be like 1 week later, we're going to move in. Like we're not doing that. Right. And I think I have this, I'm very, like I said, I'm very loyal and I think I make people feel safe. So every time I do date somebody, there is this like, I want to be your boyfriend, I want to be your partner, like moment. Not every time, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but like, everyone's falling in love with me all the time. Just kidding. But like, like in those moments I had to be like, no, like I had to slow things down and like cut people off if they wanted to be in a relationship and stuff like that. And I learned a lot and it really hurt.
Yeah.
It really does sound like you're built for a lesbian relationship.
Right.
You're just ready to move in. Get that U-Haul.
Yeah. Get that Subaru attached to a U-Haul trailer. Yeah.
This happened when you were here, but did you know that there is a lesbian party in San Francisco called U-Haul? Which I think is the best name for a lesbian party ever.
Wait, do I know about that? No.
I used to go to it back in the day. I was as a friend and guest.
My sister, who's an actual lesbian, has said that I am more lesbian than her based on those. I used to have the same tendencies.
Oh, the serial monogamous thing?
Serial monogamous, and sort of like once I'm locked in,
Yeah.
a part of me comes out that I was like, I'm just being a good boyfriend. It's like, no, I know how to perform these things for that person to fall in love with me as like stable, loyalty is a big thing. Like
Yeah.
I am here for you no matter what, and because of that, you will never want to leave me.
Yep. It is interesting. It's like, when you're older, I feel like, I'm turning 40 next month, and it's like, when you're older, you see all these behaviors and you see how much like harm they cause. But like, like you said, I'm not like looking back at it. No, I'm like, okay, that was like really manipulative, but I can't blame myself because I didn't know that was not the way to do it,
Yeah. And I think for me, a part of it is learned from my parents too. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to go to another segment. So Chris, you want to discuss this next segment?
So we're gonna do in like change of topic. We're huge fans and resharers of your Instagram posts. If you were to go back and into me and Bao's, a lot of it is of you. Their tweets and TikToks and reels and whatever. Because it was one of the only things I had to do during lockdown. Sit at home and scrolling, and you came up. The algorithm knew. So we're gonna bring up some of our favorite ones, and then we can unpack it if you're down.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I'll go first. Okay. On September 5th, 2024, you sound so official. I love this one, and and I reshared it. And we've actually talked about this specific tweet on the podcast before. And this one you tweeted, sometimes I will have to pretend I liked the worst movie I've ever seen in my life because it was written by an Asian and had Asians in it. This is the pain of being Asian in America. White people will never understand. YoungMi, I live in LA, and the queer Asian community in LA, this is what I have to deal with all the time, like who work in the industry.
You want to be supportive.
This is so funny. What were you thinking about when you posted it?
Okay, I'm not gonna say what movie I'm talking about, but I think we all know there are multiple. Right.
When we did this on the podcast, we both said the movies and we kept bleeping it, and we had more DMs than we've ever had. Like, what movie were you talking about? What movie were you talking about?
Because we did the one last episode or two where it's like we quoted that tweet and we're just like, oh, but that movie, and we were trying to be so like vague about which movies or all of that. Like, but you know what? It was so great. It was so great.
So I have to say that everyone kept saying that it was about everything everywhere all at once, and I was like, what are you all on? That's the best movie ever.
Yeah,
that is the best movie ever. Obviously, I'm not talking about that movie. That's like a great movie, and who the hell thinks? I was like, basically it's every movie except that movie, actually. Like, come on, what? No, but like, to be serious, okay, so these are the things that are very hard about this, right? Number one, like, I know that Asian Americans always like talk about this scarcity mindset thing, and like, you can't say something, talk shit about somebody, or else you're gonna burn your bridges, blah blah blah. But in a lot of ways it is true. I can't talk shit about movies, period, because with Asians in it, because it's like, it's a small group, and like a lot of them, like, I know people that are either adjacent to the projects or directly involved in some way. Yeah. And like, and it's not, it's like almost every Asian movie or show that comes out, I know I'm like one removed, or have a friend or somebody like associated with it. So I don't want to fucking talk shit about any of that, because I respect everyone, and thank God everyone's getting paid. But I just want to. But sometimes I feel a little. Sometimes I'm just like, oh man.
You walk out of that theater going, oof, was that a good feeling?
And here everyone's like, yeah, you're going to go to that movie opening weekend, right? Because opening weekend's so important. You have to be in the theater. And I'm like, sure. And then, and people are like, what'd you think of the movie? It was great. And like, the person who wrote on the movie is just like sitting right there next to you. And then they worked so hard to get the Writers Guild, whatever card, to even be in that movie. They worked 10 years to even get to work in that room. So who are we to like shit on it? But also it's like, if we were objectively speaking, if I didn't know any of these people, I could be more free to talk about like the end product. But it is, the scarcity mindset.
But can I say, I was talking to Delia Kai the other day, who is a brilliant journalist. She's, Chinese American. And she said, she brought up that tweet too. And she was like, you know what I think? She was like, you know what I think? I think that's actually, because in like Asian American spaces, like creative spaces now, people are speaking up and being like, okay, that movie was ass. And what the fuck was that? Whose dad paid for this? Like, people are just speaking up and being like, that was poorly directed, that was poorly acted, that was the fucking sound design, blah blah blah, whatever, right? And she was like, I really like seeing that, because it means that will propel this medium forward. If we're doing the whole great, you did a good job and you're Asian, good job thing, then it's like, it doesn't, we have to movie. We have to, oh my god, please.
Yeah, those executives are just going to be like, that was a bad movie. Apparently Asians like that, and I'm not going to make any more of that. Versus like, Asians didn't really like that. Or as my boyfriend he's like, just let Asians be bad at stuff. For fuck this Asian excellence stuff, like, let Asians be bad at stuff.
I think this is like the conversation that Delia and I were having. It was like this idea that Asian American literature or media has to be one thing, you know, this one fucking story. And we keep seeing that over and over and over and over again, which is great because everyone's experience of that one story deserves to be said. That's their unique perspective. And that's the point of art. But it's just like at one point, sometimes I'm like, did you really want to make this movie? Or did you think that white people wanted you to make this movie about your mom? You know what I mean? Like, that's my question. It's fine if that's like the movie you really wanted to make. That's amazing. But,
or like, did you really want to make this movie? Then your investors and those white executives were just like, maybe you just needed to be more XYZ. And then it came out to be that. And it wasn't their dream project. But look, they got this huge opportunity, so they're just going to run with it.
They got their paycheck.
Got their paycheck.
Which I'm all for.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy about that. That's all I wanted.
Chris, what's your tweet?
Okay, so one of my recent faves of yours are usually involve your son, who is frequently throwing you under the bus or keeping you in check, as you said. So a recent favorite was in September of this year was you were telling a friend how you're quitting drinking, and your son in the other room runs in and yells, "You quit drinking wine? Why? It's your favorite thing." And you're just
He's
like,
so funny.
He is.
So funny.
It's just like he's always just saying something that you're like, oh, you learn a little bit more about yourself in that sense.
No, he like walked in and he was like legitimately concerned. He was like, "Wait, you quit drinking wine? Why? Why? But why? You love it." like I was saying that I was gonna quit playing like football and I'm the quarterback. Or I was just like, "You're gonna let the team down. This is your dream."
He wasn't even trying to throw you under the bus. He loved you.
Just observant.
He was concerned.
Observant. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like really cute because he said like, "It's one of your it's like your favorite thing. You love it. Why?" Like he's very like French. Like, "Oh, why would I give up drinking wine? It's one of the God's given joys of life." Like he was like coming from like that angle.
Okay, so bonus one. This is from your TikTok. Okay, I really don't think people understand how hard it is to be depressed when you're this fucking hot. You don't understand the commitment it takes to be lonely when you have 3,000 people in your DMs at all time. That is iconic. That is so good.
It's just like, and I always like make fun. I was like, but she's hot. Get over it. All this pretty privilege. just respond.
I know. I was telling Chris about this one. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's funny because sometimes I think like when hot people are depressed, I'm like, but you're hot." But it's a
Wow,
bib.
thanks
It
for
goes
saying
deeper
that
than
about me.
Oh, you're hot. You're an icon. You're gay.
Thank
So
you.
hot.
That's part of it.
I'm really committed to being fucking depressed and lonely.
Half this podcast is me just getting to talk to all the hot people I've wanted to talk to, including you.
Yeah, I guess like if we're gonna unpack that, I mean, obviously we're all kidding. We're all very attractive, and I feel like we're all depressed / sometimes lonely. It is funny because I feel like these are I feel like everyone does this, and it's like the moment that I make myself laugh the hardest. But you know, like when you're like crying alone or something, and then you look in the mirror and you're like, or something, like, you know, like
Yeah.
so you start
guns.
like messing with yourself. Yeah, like, and then you're like, "Oh damn, I'm still hot though. I still got it." But I mean, I think that's funny, but obviously it's like it's a totally different thing than being depressed. It doesn't really come from that. But sometimes I'm like, I will have this very toxic thought sometimes when I'm really sad, and I'm like, "Why am I sad? I look skinny now. I look skinny."
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
That's when I first understood depression, and my first depressive episode happened in COVID, where it's
Yeah.
like, I look so hot. I'm not drinking as much. My skin's so clear. At the time, my hair was so much fuller.
Yeah.
Great job. I have everything in the world, yet I'm still sad. What is wrong
Yeah.
with me?
Why? Yeah.
And it would just hit you hit me in the middle of like a car wash. Like,
Yeah.
I'm depressed. And then that's why I related to it, because I was just like, I could fuck everyone right now, but like,
Exactly.
it takes a lot of commitment to be lonely.
Is this why you wanted to start
Yeah.
a podcast?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also just like being, what's that word? Like honoring your emotions, you know? Like if you feel sad, you can't make it go away.
Yeah.
And, yeah, just like you have to just sit in it.
Well, speaking of emotions, this is actually an amazing segue to something you actually might recognize. What we've been doing is called the Be Real segment of our episode. And it's the part of the episode that we basically low-key stole from your podcast, Feeling Asian.
Okay.
And we talk about like what's in our minds, our hearts, and our holes. And this is like your "How are you feeling" segment from your show. And as our guest, would you like to go first?
Wait, so what's the prompt? It's
being real, like sharing like a
Being
feeling
real.
of, and it's not about any particular topic that we have for you, just something going. It could be like a good one. It could be anything that you're going through. If you like, we could go first while you.
Oh
get a
yeah,
feel
go
for it.
first. Yeah. I'm gonna think
Val,
of
you want to
something.
go or you want me to go?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
And this is like maybe in relation to the TikTok we were talking about the commitment it takes to being lonely and depressed when you're hot. Because right now it's not about me, because I'm feeling kind of good, but just a little lethargic now because my boyfriend, my partner, had just gone through a really bad depressive episode, and he's also hot. So and I realized it takes commitment to isolate yourself when you're going through that, and it was really, really hard for him. Because I don't think he's ever been through an episode with a boyfriend around. Every time he's in an episode, he could just like lock himself in his room and play video games for months, and work from home and not really have to have anyone see it. But like being in a relationship with someone, it was just always there, and it made him more stressed about it, and then triggered the depressive episodes even more. And for me, I just kept trying to be like, how can I support you? And he's like, I don't know how to support myself right now. I don't know how to tell you how to support me. And the isolation just really triggered my sort of like anxiety. Like, what is are we going to survive this? Like, what's going on? Like, how do I remain remain here for him when he doesn't want me here? And this is why I find that TikTok funny, because I was like, he's really committing to this.
Yeah.
But in a world where like I was actually pretty worried. Everything's better now. He, for the first time, has gotten on Lexapro, and we're now just kind of healing. And I hate that word. I don't hate that word, but like that word's like overused in pop psychology right now. And so I feel like my nervous system and my body's just like tired. Like it just has been kind of like activated and vigilant for the couple of weeks, just like seeing being ready to respond. And now that everything's better, I find us just like vegging out a little bit because we were both kind of like really stressed out. And so I thought, I guess a lot of my tendencies that we talked about of like, I'm going to be that like loyal there boyfriend, no matter what I need, no matter how hurt I feel, I'm going to forget about that so I could be there for you, which came in handy here. But but the minute he got on Lexapro and started feeling better, every emotion that I was feeling that was suppressing just came up, and then like he gave me a moment to like just vent for like a full day, and it wasn't pretty. I felt a lot of things I was suppressing, and I'm trying to figure out like in the future, and we were both trying to figure this out, like how do we do this together? And we're good now, but I think that it's been a pretty hard few weeks.
Yeah, it sounds like, I have to say I'm really amazed that you even had the ability to realize that. You were like, because like I think that's a huge step for people who do a lot of like emotional caretaking. And so, you going through your like partner's depressive episode, and during that time feeling like, I have to take care of this person who is in need, right? But a lot of people who are naturally like think of other people before them or are caretakers don't realize that that is really damaging for them and hard for them, right? And maybe there's like some sort of emotional harm that's happening because you're feeling like rejected or abandoned or something as well. even though you intellectually know that this person is going through a depressive episode, they're not trying to hurt you. You're feeling these emotions of like abandonment, and like the fact that you had the ability to even be like, yeah, that was a very hard period of time for me as well. You know, obviously you were going through it, but I was going through it because I was trying to take care of you and was kind of getting rejected.
Yeah. And I think I was disappointed in myself for a while for feeling those feelings. Like, why can't I be just a supportive, chill, at ease boyfriend that can be there for him in this chill way that he likes? I don't know. I just,
because you're a human and you have needs, emotional needs, and like, yeah, it sucks that your partner was sick and unwell, and like, you know, and they were going through it too. But you have needs, yeah. Of course,
you know what like ticked me out probably. TikTok, social media. For some reason, this algorithm really knows. I still kept getting fed TikToks from queer, like lesbian Asian couples.
I remember this.
Or lesbian, you know this, right? Like lesbian couples, and it's like the point of view from like the partner who's having a depressive episode. It's like, I was having a depressive episode, so my girlfriend put on a fake restaurant and is now taking my like order, and then she's gonna make me dinner. So I was like, do I have to show up that way? And then when I told my boyfriend that, he's like, absolutely fucking
like,
not.
I will break up with you.
I would hate that. I would be like, what are you making fun of me? I'm depressed. Get the fuck out of my face. Like, I would be so mad.
Just be depressed with me. That's better.
Yeah, for me, I'm like,
depression's really hard because it's like the person's going through it and they're isolating, and which is probably, you know, obvious. But the thing is, with depression, when you have the depressive episode, you do things to make it worse, and doing things to make it better feels really shitty. So you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And that pain and you know, and then when you're going through a depressive episode, obviously you two probably know this, but like you feel guilty and worthless.
That's
and it's like, yeah, and so you already feel guilty that you're fucking everything up, and your partner's there, and your poor partner's having to go through this, and then you're like, oh, I am a piece of shit, and it gets like worse and worse. You know,
it was the first time he's had to have the extra feeling of guilt in the picture with me around. Right. Yeah. And so it was like, I was like, I don't know. I can say, like, let's get past this. He's meeting the psychiatrist in 2 weeks. Let's just get past that few weeks. But then I realized when he started feeling better, I was like, okay, everything I was suppressing is coming back up, and I need to talk through it with him. Yeah. He's amazing that we were able to talk through it. And I understood things from his point of view, but it was hard. It was hard. And so someone told me once that romance is a mental illness.
Oh, I believe that.
And I believe that. And this was one of those examples. So, YoungMi or Chris, who wants to go next?
Yeah. Do you have anything in mind yet?
Yeah, go.
Okay,
I'll go.
So
last.
I guess it's sort of about this podcast because, like, a lot of people know that most of my life I haven't been known to be that in touch with my feelings. Over the last several years, I've been learning to face them. I went to my first therapist, and then especially doing this podcast where Bao forces me to talk about them. You know, I have to confront them much more often, and it helps me connect those dots in my brain more often. But like, for instance, like I wasn't much of a crier until when I was young. And this is just like a thing that I've been noticing myself. I cry so much more lately at the smallest things. Like on the last episode, I was joking how I always cry at stories about fraught mother-daughter relationships. Like I'll be watching TV and it's like, oh God, a podcast. And it's just like, why am I tearing up to this? This is not me. Because usually the only times I cry was younger is like something is directly affecting me. I'm going through this shitty thing. And now I'm crying at other people's shitty things, which I'm actually was kind of getting a little bit worried about reading your book. Am I going to start bawling when I like read this? I was watching Agatha all along and started tearing up during a mother-daughter storyline. And if you didn't know, that is a Marvel comic book show about singing witches, which is like, what is wrong with me? Why am I crying? So I don't know. I think it's a broader thing about like just like parental relationships, which I think you talk about a lot. And Bao and I were at Kimchi's birthday, a little getaway. We finished the long weekend, and we were watching the Candy episode from Post. And spoiler, she dies, and her parents come to her funeral, who she does not have a good relationship with, and we are bawling. And it's like my fifth, sixth watch, and it gets me every time. And I don't know how to process these feelings, and that, like, why do I keep crying at these things that aren't my story and wasn't me before? I'm trying to figure out who I am now. At 44 years old, I'm like, why am I crying at these things? It's such a strange feeling.
I am such a crier all my life, and I still remember when we first started being friends, and you just said that I cried a lot because I was Vietnamese.
I learned it from you.
Which is true.
Exactly.
But it's interesting that this is showing up for you at this time. You're more in touch with it, like your feelings.
You know what? Yeah. You know what I'm more concerned about? How are you feeling that you're crying a lot? Like, are you looking at it as a negative thing?
No, just a surprising thing. It feels good.
Okay.
Like, it honestly does
Good.
feel like sometimes the issue that I have with it is sometimes when I first start feeling it and I overly notice it, then I almost kind of start stopping because I've become so aware. Oh, I'm crying. And then, like, I'll start thinking about that. And then the emotions about whatever I'm thinking about start, like, passing because I'm overthinking this crying. So, like, oh, now I want to cry. It feels so good. And, oh, now I'm not in the mood because I'm thinking about crying. It's a little weird. It's like, oh, that tear. Where's that tear? Just keep coming out.
Yeah. Like maybe there's a part of you that's like judging yourself for crying.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You're trying to stop yourself. Yeah, that's the only part that I'm concerned about. But also, that's like something that like we get like conditioned into. You know, we got conditioned into that as a kid.
Yeah, don't cry. You're bad or you're weak.
Yeah, that's like the thing that's not matching the intellect thing. I think, you know. But that's just like an internalized like voice that it's hard to undo that.
But I enjoy it. I'm getting better at it. I'll just watch another sad witch lady episode and see what happens.
I've never seen the movie Freaky Friday, the one with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. My boyfriend showed it to me. I full on cried on that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Then he's like, "You never seen The Parent Trap?" He showed me The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan's. Full on child PG movie. Full on cried on that too. I just embrace it. It's fun. A good cry feels so good.
Yeah. No, whatever. You're processing something that means a lot to you, probably.
Yeah.
I guess I talk about this a lot, but I can talk about it here in like a concise way. I think my big issue is I fear success, right? And I fear when things go well. I mean, it's tied to a lot of things because growing up, I think my mom was like competitive with me. So if I did something well, she would punish me for it. And so whenever something good happens to me, I have this like underlying feeling of dread, you know, like someone's gonna slap me or something. But then also another part of that is like when things good happen to me and everybody around me, you know, now is supportive and loving. Then I get really, really sad because I realized that was the kind of reaction I was supposed to receive from my parents growing up, and they never gave me that. So it's like almost like when somebody shows up for you correctly, then you're sad because you realize that all your life you never got that response from people that you love in your life, and that is heartbreaking, you know?
It feels like an injustice.
Yeah, just like these emotions like of being 8 years old, being 10 years old, doing a great job at my recital, and I got punished for it, or my parents didn't give a shit, or they weren't there to pick me up. They didn't even know. And like those feelings of like, I should have had a loving parent there to help me in that moment and say, good job, instead of telling me that I look fat on stage. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like once you get the thing that you should have had all along, that is so painful. And I feel like that's the sadness that keeps coming up when I have like, I've only like seen like one or two positive like official reviews of my book because it's not out yet. But whenever I see, or like, my friend will be like, oh, I love your book or something. And it's just genuine. They're not like tricking me. They're not being like, I loved your book. And then being like, what a dumbass. Like my mom would do, like they're just being authentic. Like they're like, I really love your work and you did a great job. That at the end.
Yeah, it's okay for something to be good. And that's it.
Yeah. But that's so painful when I see somebody say that. I'm like, that's like what I deserved when I was like 10. I never got it,
Yeah. And do you ever have this feeling like, God, if I just got this love when I was 10, I could fucking be the president.
Yeah, I would be the most mid person and very successful.
Yeah.
I would be Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like zero talent, lots of confidence,
Like, why is it so
Yeah.
hard for us Asians to take a compliment? You're like, oh no, I didn't put that much work into it. It's okay. Like, why are we like this?
Well, I don't know, because we're scared. Like in Korean culture, if somebody compliments you and you say thank you, then your mom's like, what a fucking show off. And then you're like, what? I just said thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing
hard.
that. And is it something that you've written about? Like, I think even your book ends with it, about this idea of embracing
fear of
success, failure, and love.
Now what?
I know.
Like things are good. Now what? I gotta go find another really shitty person to date that's gonna ruin my life for the next year.
And then right
Or you will
Just kidding. That's a joke.
Or you will find just the one. Oh, it's just the one really exists, but just someone
that appreciates you and you appreciate. Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have with you. I know we're running up against time. So, YoungMi, thank you, our icon, for coming onto the podcast.
For spending time with us. I mean, like I said, I just love talking to the people I've had a crush on for the past few years.
Whoa, okay. I love when I have someone on the podcast that I have a huge crush on. Because then I get to just act like I'm like, oh yeah, this is important. This is my job. But then the whole time I'm just staring at them like,
who's one of those?
I'm not telling.
Oh, I'm like, outside of John Kung. Who was
I was about to say.
John Kung.
We interviewed John Kung. I was like,
I literally just DM'd his most recent video to my friend. Like, this man is too fine. He is too fucking fine. What the fuck?
You know what annoys me? He's fine and nice.
He's
like
he's
genuinely
one of the nicest guys I know.
Kindest people. It annoys me so much. I was like, if I had one of those.
That's so funny. Right before I came on here, I DM'd somebody that video.
Okay.
All right. Well,
so to send you off, we're going to kind of backtrack a little bit, and we're going to ask you one last question. And it's from a list of questions that ChatGPT recommended to ask you.
We're back to ChatGPT. We're closing it off.
So we chose 3. If you pick a number between 1 and 3, we'll ask the question based on that number. So what's your what number?
I'm taking a picture of us. Number 3. Wait, this is in order?
No, you just do one. You'll just do
just pick one. We'll just do one.
Okay. Question 3 is, you have such a strong social media presence. What's the strangest interaction you've had with a fan online?
Oh, I know this one. Well, this is not even I guess online. Somebody. Okay, I have 2 funny ones. Okay, because one of them is actually online, but one is on the street. So this one, I like posted this in my stories, but this one person was like, oh, my white ex-boyfriend, I'm biracial. My white ex-boyfriend is like obsessed with you and like follows you on social media. And we broke up. He's like the worst. And I just don't like it that he like I introduced you to him and now he's like, oh, she's so funny and like likes all your posts. And I was like, I'm gonna block him. I don't like this at all. I'm on your side and I don't like your white boyfriend looking at my content. And she's like, yeah, I don't get it. Like, what does he find so funny about it? He's not biracial. He's not Asian. So I was like, blocked, bitch. And so I was like, but I was like half joking, but half like it's funny to block this guy because it's just like I don't actually care about obviously like white guys looking at my content, but like I was like I'm just gonna do it as a joke. Haha.
Nope, that's it.
But so then I went to my DMs and she she said something like, oh, he's probably trying to like slide into your DMs or something. And I was like, oh, I wonder. So I looked in my DM, like the folder, it's like the request. Sure enough, he was there saying the most fucking batshit insane shit I've ever seen. He was like, he said literally one of the last things he DM'd me, and he's been like liking and commenting on all my posts that I just never saw. Yeah. And then the last one he sent like was a picture of me and Mino, my son, at the restaurant. And he was like, I would provide for you and your son, or something weird like that. I was like, ew. I was like, that is weird. And I think he kind of was like, oh, haha, I'm joking. I'm making a weird joke. And I was like, no, this is fucking weird. And I like showed it to the girl. I was like, ew, he's so creepy. She
won. She got out of that.
Immediately blocked.
Oh, wow. That's gross.
So funny. But then the in real life interaction one that was so weird, but I think about it to this day, was this Asian woman came up to me and she was like, oh my God, I know you from the internet. Just so you know, you're my boyfriend's hall pass. Like, you know, like if you have a hall pass, like if you get to sleep with one person, you get to sleep with that person. Like, and your partner can't get mad at you. And she was like, you're my boyfriend's hall pass. And I was like, I don't know. You literally just told me that. I don't know who you are. Like, imagine going up to somebody and that's the first thing that you say to them. I was like, that was a choice. What do I say to that? What do I say?
I don't know. Gay men are kind of used to that. Me and my partner saw you from across the room. It's very common.
I know. Unfortunately, gay men would have been like, let's see him.
Yeah, what's his at?
Let's see him.
I should have been like, what's his at? That's what I should have said. No. Bitch, thank you for the information. Let me check this man out. What's his at?
Oh, I don't know if he has a chance. Or like, you just like give her the truth. What did you end up doing? You're like, hey.
I was just like, okay.
Yeah, congratulations. You're welcome.
Sure. Thank you. No, she was like sweet. It was funny. It was funny. If you're listening to this, I thought it was funny. What's his at?
What's his at?
What's his at?
Comment with that. ChatGPT said that question would inject some humor while keeping it light and pointed. And it did. We ended on a light and pointed note. Before we leave, where can people find you on socials, YoungMi?
YM Mayer on Instagram and Twitter, and then YoungMi Mayer on TikTok.
Oh. And you can follow us at Literally Gaysians on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Patreon.
Until next time, bye everyone. Thanks for
Bye.